So 3 G's. So I put up what they are, the gold, guys and gals, and glory. I just want to make sure that we know what the description is. So gold, what is gold? Integrity. What does integrity mean? You guys need some enthusiasm. Doing the right thing when no one is looking, right? That means you're not stealing food, not stealing product. You're working when you're clocked in. You're being proactive. Absolutely. All right, guys and gals. Professional conduct. What does professional conduct mean? No sexual harassment. So it's even more so than that. Not just don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything stupid, obviously, but it's professional conduct. So creating an environment, a culture where people are safe, not only safe to interact and not feel like they're going to be harassed, but do we allow teasing? Do we allow gossip, hazing? Those all violate that guys and gals, and that's an issue, right? Glory. Teamwork. What is that?
We win together.
We all win together, right? So teamwork. We all win as a team, but also we lose as a team as well. Meaning when we have a bad pay period, we have a bad week or a rough night, you can't point the finger at one person. It may have been a mistake that someone made that we feel like was the turning moment. But if you watch sports, and if you're into sports, I use sports a lot because I love sports. But you watch, a loss happens. Say football, the quarterback is the one that it usually falls on his shoulders, no matter what it is, and they do a great job at making sure not one specific person takes the blame. They don't blame the receiver that had 4 drop balls. They don't blame the defense that had lousy coverage. They take it as their own, but they say it's a team effort, right? We're out here to win as a team, but we lose as a team as well. You guys are the quarterback, essentially. You guys are gonna, when victories happen, you're gonna get the bonus, you're gonna get the praise. People are gonna say, oh, how great Josh did. His store is the best store I've ever seen. But when you guys are doing bad, what are you doing, Josh? What's happening? What are the issues you're having? Or is it not connecting for you? So you take a lot of that weight on your shoulders, but it's that team around you that you want to utilize to help be successful, to build up and have those victories and have those moments. So we all win together. So once again, these 3 G's are essential to our culture. The culture you create is either going to be a positive culture or it's going to be a negative culture, but it's always powerful. So if you have a great culture, that's a powerful culture. It's a strong culture. It has impact. It has purpose. It's going to be moving in a positive direction. If you have a negative culture, it's going to be doing the exact opposite, but it will still be powerful. It's pushing you away from what your end goal is, but it still has a lasting effect on people and especially on yourselves. If you work in a bad culture, going to work each day is dreadful. Going to work each day for your team members is dreadful. Once again, I talked about it earlier. It's not that we're passionate about wings. It's not that we're passionate about, cheese fries. It's that we're passionate about what we do. We found something in our restaurants, within our job titles, that we are passionate about doing, and that's what motivates us every day. Now that motivation is increased 30-fold, especially if there's something like a culture that is so positive that we enjoy to. We enjoy going to work with the people we work with. We enjoy the people we're around, 8 to 12 hours a day. Workplace culture influences management, organization, and application of work, and is defined by a collective view of all team members. So what that means is your culture is only going to be successful when the team around you buys into that culture. When they're on board with that culture, then that culture pushes forward. Say for instance, the Ted and the VP and all those, the higher up execs came up with this culture for Sizzling Platter. And then no one bought into it. No one believed in it, but them up top, they believed in it. The culture would go its own direction. The majority would essentially rule. But if they were hard and they stuck to what this idea of this culture that they wanted, eventually people either have to buy in or they have to find a new job. Those are the only 2 options. You buy into the culture, you find somewhere else to work. And for us, we can't settle for people not accepting the culture. And that doesn't mean people aren't going to make mistakes and people it's not going to take some time to form and to get into this culture, but they have to be working towards making these positive steps, or they have to find somewhere else to work, because the lasting effects for you as the leader are going to be far greater than however long that person stays in your restaurant. I promise you that. An object in motion will remain in motion unless it is acted upon by some outside force. Isaac Newton, of course. If we roll a ball and there's no gravity, there's no friction, anything like that, the ball will just keep rolling forever and ever and ever. Nothing will stop it. But the moment something gets in its way, whether it's a rock or there's a divot in the path or something, a gust of wind pushes it, that'll change the course. Same thing is true in a positive culture. Your positive culture will go on forever. But you guys know just as well as I do, there are too many negative things that have potential to happen on a daily basis that will get in the way of a positive culture. Now the same is true with a negative culture. Negative culture will go forever and ever. But it takes a lot more power to knock a negative culture off track than it does to take a positive culture off track. So be mindful of that. You have to be intentional as you're developing your culture, and you have to be in tune with that culture every single day. It can't be we talk about the 3Gs one day and then we just assume everyone knows it and it's ingrained in us that we'll never have a problem with the 3Gs again. It has to be part of that conversation every single day. Same thing with your culture. If you have a negative culture in your store, it will continue down that path until you act to change it. Isaac Newton's first law. Negative culture will impact both team member and business performance. So it's going to affect not only the attitude of the team members in your store, but your overall customer satisfaction is going to be affected by it as well, because you know just as well as I do, when your cashier or a cashier is grumpy and having a bad day and they're not being optimistic or being happy, that has an effect on the guest that's ordering their food, and that could make an impression on whether or not they come back or what their perspective of your store is. So a positive culture is very important. Positive culture will produce beneficial team members and work outcomes and create a better work environment. Once again, people that love going to work are not only passionate about something that they do or they found a passion within it, but they thoroughly enjoy working with the people they work with. I love my job because of the people I work with. The travel's great. I gotta admit I love this aspect of teaching. I love all that. But at the end of the day, I love the people I work with. And not only the people I directly work with, the people in my department, but I love working with you guys. I love getting to meet tons of different people. Love to meet quirky people, serious people, talkative people, shy people, and I love to see your personalities and see the things that you all collectively have done well at to put you in this position. I love what I do. I mean, it's the material is the material, but I love the aspect of the job where I get to interact with you fine folks, because I don't know where you're going to be in 5 years. I don't know what you're going to be doing. You could be my boss in 5 years. You could be working for the corporate office as some VP, and it would be cool to say, I knew them when they were first coming up through the MIT, or right when they graduated and they just started with us. I am grateful to have that. That's what I'm passionate about, is the people aspect. What's your passion? And that passion should be the thing that drives your culture. You cast that vision for your crew, and they need to buy into whatever that is. And that's gonna push that culture long term. So as neural pathways get deeper and deeper, they become harder to change. So just like that bike video, right? You learn how to ride the bike. You're never gonna forget how to ride the bike. But even if you tell yourself, I'm gonna ride a bike differently, I'm gonna change the handlebars, you're not able to do it because that neural pathway is so deep. Now, thinking of some habits in your store that are going on, what do we need to change? If you could think of a habit right now that just happens at your restaurant that if you could change tomorrow, what would it be? What's something you would change? I know we all said we had frustration, so there's something that goes on. Sense of urgency. Is that just like people dragging their feet? They're not working. Absolutely. So if you could change that in a drop of the dime, just people work quick, work fast, you would. What else?
Time and attendance. I said time and attendance.
Time and attendance.
Just getting there on time.
Get to work on time. You're scheduled for 3. Be there on time. Absolutely. What'd you have, Josh?
Being okay with bad quality of food.
Yeah. So you want to change that, like not accepting putting a bad product out.
Like
absolutely.
Emptying the fryer oil.
Yeah.
Fryer oil.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Putting out what would you want for yourself? If you were buying wings, would you want what you're putting out? Absolutely. Changing that perspective. And so identifying, once again, that habit, that thing that frustrates us, that thing that we hate, that wish we could change overnight is half the battle. But it comes from you being persistent and being that thorn in someone's side that every single day you're chiming in and you're repeating these things, that eventually that clicks and that 3 to 6 weeks has gone by and now, bam, it's a habit. They're just naturally doing it. And so setting the tone is part of it. Setting the example, broadcasting that vision, but that follow-up and that consistency along the way is equally as important. Now, if culture is bad, it needs to start changing now. This requires more than a quick fix, and it calls for a constant attention to maintain. Does anyone in here own their own house, like they have a mortgage? So you guys know, most of you will know as well, same type of thing. When you move into a house, the house you guys have, did you move into it or did you build it brand new? Moved into it? Same with you? Built it? Okay, so this applies to both of you. Perfect. So when you're building a house, building a culture is much like building a house. If you're able to start from the ground up, meaning you get a brand new store, brand new crew, you get to build from the ground up, meaning you start your foundation. You know, for us, that's the 3 Gs. The 3 Gs have to be the foundation. Make sure the foundation is built, it's sturdy, and then you move upward. You start putting the walls up, you know, put the roof on, the flooring, all those. You add the intricate parts that make it look nice. And then you know that once the house is built or once that culture is there, you can't just leave it, right? It's not like you have this mindset that I'll never run into a problem again. The roof is never gonna leak. There's never gonna be a problem with plumbing or electrical or anything like that. Anyone that builds a house realizes at some point I'm gonna have to invest more money into the house. Whether that's 5 years down the road or 15 years down the road, you come to that acceptance. Now, if you've moved into a house, and this is the same for if you're renting a house, anything like that, is especially true though for renting or buying, because you go through the process of inspection. You have someone come out and inspect the foundation. They inspect the plumbing, the electrical, all these different things. But no homeowner is going to buy a house if the foundation's cracked, because that is a lot of money to fix the most foundational part, the core of your home. It's very expensive to fix that foundation. And same thing is true in our culture. If you're being brought into a new store, or even right now you're looking at your culture and you're just like, it's kind of bad. Like, I don't think the 3 Gs are really something we're living out here. You have a crack in your foundation, and it doesn't make sense to fix the uniform policy or fix the cell phone policy or fix the sense of urgency problem if we have a crack in that foundation, because you're fixing a leak when the bottom of your floor is caving in. So when you're in tune with your culture, be aware if those 3 things if one of them somewhere along the line, and I'm not accusing anyone of anything obviously, if one of those things aren't being met, I have to fix that thing first, or I'm going to be wasting my time trying to fix all these other problems, because there's going to be this underlining outstanding issue that still hasn't been addressed. And so it takes that constant attention to maintain. But once again, once those foundations are there, that doesn't mean you're never going to run into a problem again. That doesn't mean that you'll never have an issue with people showing up late or wearing their hats backwards or whatever it is. You want to be in tune with that, and you want to be able to maintain that the whole time you're there. Culture will keep rolling, but there are a lot of things that will potentially get in the way to prevent your culture from progressing. So Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "That which we persist in doing becomes easier for us to do. Not that the nature of the thing itself has changed, but our power to do is increased." So who knows how to drive like a stick, like a manual transmission car? Relatively. So when you learned how to drive it, did you stall? You have a hard time backing up, getting out of the driveway? Left-hand turn intersections were a nightmare, or like being stopped at a hill and having to go up. That's the epitome of the worst thing ever, learning to drive stick. So you got to pump it into gear, then you release the brake while you press the gas, release the clutch. It's a very quick process. It can be difficult to do, absolutely. But once you figure out how to do it, you know how to do it. And you may need a refresher if it's been some time since you drove, but it's like riding a bike. You won't forget how to do it. Now, Ralph Waldo Emerson is saying that the task of learning to drive stick never changed. It is the exact same formula. There's nothing different. They just add more gears, but everything is the exact same as it was when they first did it. But your ability or your power to do so has been what has increased. Your skill set to overcome it is what's increased. It's never going to be any less difficult to develop the culture. It's going to be very hard to do. It's going to be hard forever. No matter what you do, wherever you go to build culture, very difficult to do. I think a parent would say the same thing, right? Parenting never got easier, or we figured out things that worked, things that worked for our kids, and we found successes in those things. Same thing is true for you in the restaurant. The culture is always going to be a difficult thing to build, to maintain, to be in tune with. But as you progress, your skill set becomes more tuned, and you're finding ways that it works. You're finding things that don't work. You're finding ways to make connections with those team members, and that's what's making the task seem easier. But it's really your ability. You have continued to progress. So the trick to self-mastery lies in choosing to make profound changes. Step one is recognizing what will make a difference. You have an enormous capacity for positive, powerful things when you direct the power of the mind. Make shifts in mental associations, then behaviors become easier to control. So for you guys, you have to come to this realization of, what do I want to change? What in my culture do I want to do differently? What do I want to invest in? What's important to me? And what's going to make a difference? You have to come to that conclusion mentally. You have to make that connection. Once that connection is made, then that behavior is going to be what starts to follow. If you're constantly reminding yourself of, this is what I want to do, that behavior naturally will start to follow. Now you have to do that same thing in your restaurants, right? The saying, do as I do, not as I say, is not true. It's going to be do as I say, but also believe what I say. Believe in what I say. Buy into this idea that I'm pushing out. Buy into this culture that we're really trying to push. Once they make that connection, they see the benefits of it, they're still going to make mistakes. They're still going to be imperfect people, but they're going to be working towards this goal, and those behaviors will start to follow that mental association, that mental click they've made somewhere along the line. So you guys got to be salesmen, and we'll get to that in a second. You got to sell this culture. You got to sell the benefits of this culture and make it appealing, make it something that they desire. But then you also have to make a demand for it. You can't accept anything less than. And that doesn't mean you can't have grace, and when people make mistakes, you can't help them out, but you can't settle for less than. You can't let people get back into the norm of doing anything less than what your culture is pushing out. Give you guys a second on this one. All right, I'm going on. So, part of changing the path, part of going from a negative culture to a positive culture is as follows. So demonstrate strong leadership and set good examples. You guys have a bullseye on your back. Your team members in some sense are looking for you to make a mistake. They want to see you do something other than what you've been broadcasting. Now, that doesn't mean you have an expectation to be perfect, but you want to set a good example of what the right thing is, but also the ownership to the mistakes that you do make. That could be small things, that could be a little bit bigger things, whatever it is, that ownership, that sense of humility is something that looks very good in people's eyes. They see this real life example of a person that I aspire to be. If this person is my leader, they're setting a good tone, but even when they make mistakes, they're owning up to it. That's great. Constant and regular two-way communication with team members, meaning your team members have to be able to approach you. They have to be able to have conversations. They have to be able to, say if you did something that maybe was over the top. You'd say you reacted, you got frustrated. They should feel comfortable saying, hey, I felt it like it was a little bit above and beyond. And you should be able to accept that and process that without blowing up on them as well. Understand the views, values, and motivations of individual team members. So one thing in culture that we really want to hammer on is you have to be connected to your team members. Not only are we working together, but have a perspective of their lives, of what they do outside of work. What are they working for? What are their motivations? What's important to them? Do they have kids? Do they have a family? Connecting with your team members, and I know by and large we do this with certain people well. We just mesh well. We probably know our assistants very well, but we want to invest and have some connection to each of our team members, and allow them to see part of our life too. So allow them to know who's in our family and our kids and those types of things. Offer opportunities for professional development and growth, meaning give opportunity that for your assistant manager so they can be trained, so they can develop some of those skills. Your lead manager to bring them in a position of leadership long term as well. Recognize and reward effort. I would just write that down, but tomorrow we're going to talk about that because it's very specific based on personality types. And maybe you're thinking that or you've recognized that already, but we'll give you some examples of how to reward each of these different personalities based on what the strong characteristics are of them. Establish and build strong teams, meaning your team within your team. You have your morning shift, your PM shift, building those strong teams so they can function well, but that they also build well off each other, that the AM shift recognizes that the PM shift's work is important, and vice versa, that they work well off each other. And then, of course, genuinely care about your team. Show compassion, show interest into their lives, into their motivations. Be more than just a boss. Be a human being. Be a figure that they can connect well with. All right. So, a few more takeaways. For us, what we want to do when we start developing this culture is create a vision statement. If you've been to like a company page or a brand page, they all have a vision statement, what we stand for, what we're working towards. For you guys, create one. Create a vision statement that aligns with SBI and document that. Hang that up above your desk, put it somewhere in your store so it's a reminder for you, but also make it part of those conversations as well. Look for positive attitudes while hiring. Tomorrow, the last section we get into at the end of the day before I send you guys out for good is hiring. And a lot of mistakes we run into is we get fooled by people. We think someone is someone that they're not. So hopefully we can give you some tips that are going to help you be a little bit more successful in identifying a positive attitude when hiring. Open door policy, of course, distance and inaccessibility are not a good thing. An open door policy that people can come up and they can talk about maybe a problem or an interaction they had with another team member and share that with you and trust that you're going to make the final judgment and the proper one as well. Engage team members in the good of Sizzling Platter. We'll get to that in just a moment. And then let your team members know they're appreciated. So that could be just a thank you. That could be a pat on the back. That could be a reward. That could be a mini party you throw one morning, something like that. Letting them know that they're appreciated, that you show or recognize what they've done and what successes they have had.